Hi there, it's Ashley Pinkle again with Naked Food Sweet 10 series. Today I decided that I would be making some sweet tortillas. I've heard them called many different things. They're just a nice basic sweet tortilla with oil, sugar, water, and flour, a pinch of salt. But this is something you can really tailor and make it your own. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put everything together. All you need to mix this recipe with is going to be a saucepan. Make sure that it's deep enough that when you dissolve all your sugar in our liquids, which we're going to do, that it can fit 3 cups of flour. When you mix this, you don't want to make a real big mess with your flour everywhere. And if your saucepan is too small, then you're going to have that issue. So in our saucepan, we are going to go ahead and put our liquids in here first. So we have 1/3 cup oil. We're going to go ahead and just put that in our measuring cup here. So that's 1/3 cup oil. 1/3 cup sugar. It's always nice to have 2 separate 1/3 cups. And then we're going to do 3/4 cup water. Three-fourths cup water, and a pinch of salt because we are using sugar. Yeah, that should be good. So now we're going to take it over to the stove and we're going to dissolve all of our liquids in here. Alright, so we're going to turn this on a medium-low heat because we just want to make sure that our oil and water dissolves all of our sugar before we put our flour in because we don't want any granules of sugar in our sweet tortillas. We want it to be nice and creamy. So got that down on a medium-low heat. And go ahead and just give that a stir. It's not anything that you have to babysit. Just give it a stir. It's probably going to take about 2 to 3 minutes. Make sure it just doesn't bubble and it will warm up. Helpful hint, interesting as well. Did you know that colder liquids will come to a boil faster? I didn't know that. So our sugar is dissolved. Now we're going to add our 3 cups of flour. We're going to mix it with our wooden spoon. Then we're going to go over to the board and our rolling pin. Sprinkle a little flour on the board and then go ahead and roll it out into the little sizes that we want. We're also going to make sure that we preheat our pan because you never want to put anything on a cold pan and then have it come up to temperature. That's nonsense, so don't ever do that. Make sure you always have a hot pan before you start. So I'm just going to take this 1 cup and go ahead and measure 3 cups into our nice hot dissolved sugar liquid that we have here with our oil and our sugar and water and that pinch of salt because we are using sugar. And I'm using a knife to scrape the top off of the flour because it's just easier to get a good measurement that way. Don't ever pack your flour down because then you're actually going to get more flour than you really need that a recipe calls for. So you can see how I'm just doing that. Alright, so we got all 3 cups in there. We're going to go ahead and give this a nice stir. Now, remember at the beginning I said make sure your pan is big enough. My liquid and my flour, it's only coming midway, so I have a lot of room to mix this around and use some elbow grease to make sure that I can get all of this flour mixed in really well. Don't forget that we're also going to go head over to the rolling pin and the cutting board to make sure we can roll this out and knead it a little more together because we want to make sure we have a nice ball of dough. Alright, so off to the cutting board. So we have our dough here and we're just going to go ahead and knead the bumps out of it. Now you're going to know if you're going to need any of that flour on the cutting board determining on how sticky it is. My dough is a little sticky and I just don't want it to stick to my board. And we're going to roll these out individually as well. So You don't need a big cutting board for this. Okay, so our dough is nice and it's brought together. It's in one ball. It's not too sticky. So what we're going to do, you can either do this in advance if you want, depending on how big your griddle is. We're just going to take nice little sections off and we're going to roll these out. And I like to go ahead and make them all in advance. So that's something that you can do just so you can have an assembly line going. Alright, so this recipe makes about a dozen of these, depending on the size that you make them. I made them about golf ball size, because now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some flour on the board and coat the ball in some flour, and then we're just going to roll it out. I have a nice heavy marble pin. A wood pin, rolling pin would work. Even if you didn't have a rolling pin, you could always use a glass. But we want to make sure that we roll it nice and thin. So here is our very first sweet tortilla right here. So you can see that it's nice and it's stretchy. It's not going to break. And we're just going to throw that on our hot griddle back here. Go ahead and finish out the rest of these and rolling them out, and we'll just stack them so we can just have that nice little line going and cooking will go quicker. Last one. So we'll roll this out. The great thing about this recipe is we used regular sugar. This is just a very plain sweet tortilla. But something you can do with these is, definitely make them your own. Add brown sugar instead of the granulated sugar. Maybe add some molasses. Add some other flavorings to this. One of my other favorites is using cinnamon along with it. So maybe during the holidays you can do something more along the cinnamon, nutmeg, clove version of it. But these plain sweet ones are really good for like different jam preserves, breakfast, a snack on the go. You're going to find that they're very, very addicting. You could probably also make these with a gluten-free flour. I know there's people out there that can't have flour products, and so this is something that you could probably find in a gluten-free flour, and then just go ahead and follow the recipe the same. So we're going to go ahead and check our griddle. Alright, so our grill is hot. It seems quite warmed up to me, so I'm going to put it on a low medium heat. I don't want to burn these. Again, this could probably follow the pancake rule. Watch the first one to see, and also depending on the thickness that you have rolled them out to be will determine on how long you need to cook them. You do not want to go black on either side of them, so just keep an eye on them. You're going to want to gauge it about, I would say, a minute per side if we are looking at 1/4 of an inch thin when we rolled those out. When you roll them, they will shrink up a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and let this sit and continue cooking the rest of our sweet tortillas. Alright, so we're done with everything. Go ahead and take this off. Let these cool down to room temperature before we store them. Okay, so now they're cool. We're going to go ahead and just put them in a freezer bag. People can come and get them as they wish, and also put whatever type of topping they like. Remember, it does have a sweet flavor to it, so jams and different butters and honeys are really good on it. Peanut butter is very good, but they're very good plain as well, so taking them on a hiking trip can be a nice little change from the regular old trail mix. But these are the color, this is the color that you do want them to be, and they are so incredibly tasty. So make the recipe, see what your family thinks, and give me some feedback. You can email me at nfsweet10@hotmail.com. Thanks.